Hi guys, welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. It's me, Steve Hall, and on the other end, Pascal Steve, who just cracked open what everyone knows. Actually, is it a monster today?
No, it's
or have
beer.
You cracked open? It's a beer.
I became an alcoholic.
On that note, it was
back to the old days.
One of my clients was really kind. I just emailed a bunch of clients recently asking them for testimonials because I realized actually this is a note for online coaches, and we haven't actually spoken about it, Pascal, but when a client leaves, 9 times out of 10 with us, they're leaving under very good terms, like they've seen good results, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes, obviously, some people drop off because, I don't know, for whatever reasons. But if you ask for a testimonial once they're leaving, it's harder to kind of get it sometimes, I find, versus when you're coaching them currently and you've been doing stuff for a few months and they're going to stay. I quite often find that people are more responsive to giving testimonials, and I really like a video testimonial. But anyway, so I emailed a bunch of clients. He sent one over. Literally, Elliot is the man. He is just the man. I love coaching Elliot. And he sent it over literally in a couple of hours. I was like, oh, damn. Wow. He's just on it. And in there, he was like, Steve is the kind of guy that you could just have a beer with, and I hope one day we can. And I was just, in my head, I was immediately like, I'm not going to drink a beer.
Never going to happen.
A chat with him. I'd love to have a coffee. Actually, he loves his coffee as well. He's definitely a coffee connoisseur. But yeah, just reminded me of that.
It's just in your head, Elliot, I do like you, but this is never going to happen. I didn't gather what flavor of Monster it was. Was it watermelon? Did I catch it through my eye? It's beer taste, beer flavor. No,
you like the taste of beer though, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I loved it, to be honest. I still do. I very much like the taste. And I think that I've even discussed it with you at some point that in Japan, when I visited Tokyo, they had, I don't know when it was, in the 90s or early 2000s or so, they had a massive problem with alcoholism. And they then, the biggest brewery there, they came up with a beer that is an alcohol-free beverage that is very much tasting though like beer, which is also very uncommon though. And then they've created a zero version of it. And when I was in Tokyo, I was getting a 6-pack each and every single day because I was just drinking those the entire day.
That's so funny. It's you take out the fact that it's non-alcoholic. You just tell someone I'm getting a 6-pack. I drink one every night. They'd be like, right, you got a problem.
Yeah, and it was zero, right? Zero calories.
I'm guessing. Do they not have? I know there's non-alcoholic beers and lots of non-alcoholic beverages, but I don't know if there's many zero. Is that available in the UK or Europe or?
I've never seen anything here in Germany, at least.
Yeah,
there is a very, very good one from Erdinger alcoholfrei, it's called in German, and this one tastes very good as well. But it has 15 kcals per 100 milliliters. Okay, and if you it's all right.
Not too bad.
15 kcals isn't too bad at all. But if you drink it the entire day,
not a 6-pack.
and I fucking hate drinking my calories, to be honest. For someone like you and people who are above 4,000 calories, I even recommend drinking the calories because it's so much easier to get it down.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's, I don't know, I guess for me, when I first had coffee, I really didn't like it. Obviously, I did it the worst way possible. The only reason I had a coffee was after work as a pre-workout, because I read somewhere that a black coffee was the best pre-workout. Yeah. So I make it with coffee granules, a couple of teaspoons and hardly any water.
And then your sleep was just absolute dog shit.
Back then, ignorance was bliss to sleep, I guess. But yeah, I remember having it and be like, how do people drink this? This is horrible. And I would put loads of sugar in. But eventually I came around to coffee. But alcohol, or rather beer, I never enjoyed the taste of it. I don't know if I would if I continued to have had it and as your palate matures, I guess.
I think it also depends on what type of beer you're getting, because there is a specific flavor that I really don't like. And I'm a typical northern German guy. We always like it when it's herb. So I think it's called even herb. I don't know, when it's a little bit bitter. Okay. And you can't really have too much of those. And I still remember back then when I was playing in a band, we had our typical pub where we always met up. And on an evening, you couldn't drink more than kind of, I don't know, 3 liters, which is a lot if you really think about it. But not because you were so drunk, but because of your taste buds. It was too bitter at some point. You couldn't get it down anymore, And that is, I don't know, it's the same with cheese, I think.
Okay.
Some people, there are specific versions of cheese where you're just like, oh, this is disgusting, or I don't even have any kind of flavor in it at all. And then there are cheese flavors that is freaking amazing. And I'm not that cheese type of guy, but there are specific flavors out there. Amazing, That's the only explanation that I have.
Yeah, I get that. I'm the wrong person to talk about beer, but bitter, I know there's like a bitter and maybe a stout, or I don't know, I'm sure my ignorance here. I have no idea. But I was that whenever I drank, that's why whenever I drank, it was basically with the objective of getting drunk. And so I've never had that balance with alcohol, really. And then once I had balance with it, I was like, why the fuck would I even drink alcohol if I'm not getting drunk? I kind of had that mindset to it. And I would be that guy that would just drink like maybe gin and slim and like, I don't know. I had like ciders, but even like an apple cider was too much for me. I'd have to have like a pear cider or a fruit cider of some sort.
I think it's the same as with smoking. I think that smoking has decreased, of course, right? There aren't that many people smoking anymore as it was in the past, but it was more like a social thing, especially. And that was the thing with alcohol as well. I wasn't necessarily drinking alcohol because I enjoyed it or it tasted so great that I always wanted to have that flavor in my mouth. It was more like a social thing. You got together, you hung out together, and everyone had a beer. And because of that, I think that it may have tasted a little bit better than it actually tastes, because I couldn't imagine myself sitting at home by myself and drinking a beer. I couldn't.
I guess it's with wine. Do you enjoy wine, or is that something that you haven't come around to?
Never. Yeah. This was one of those things where I never really understood the hype, or the hype. There was never really a hype about it, but like when people were so fancy about wine. But it's of course just me, my taste buds. Same as other things that you're putting in your mouth, whatever it is, Steve, you get me. Some people like the taste and some people don't, right? I don't know. I just had sushi because Katie took some sushi with me. She was actually meeting her mom yesterday evening, and she brought me some sushi, and I freaking love sushi. But I also know that so many people freaking hate sushi. It's the same there as well.
Another diversive one. Pineapple on pizza. Yay or nay?
Nay. It's blasphemy.
I'm with you.
Why would you do something like this? I think you are the same as me, Steve. If you can make a pizza margarita taste freaking amazing, this just proves how good of a pizza chef you are. If you're using a lot of different ingredients, you're basically you have something to hide. Something is wrong with you.
I'm the same with like cake. Not that I'm into cake at all, but Charlotte always shows me these cakes with like, I don't know, like a Mars bar and a Twix on top of it. I'm like, why? Just eat the cake and then have a Mars bar and a Twix separate. Why do I have to be on top?
Are you still? Is it still a thing on Instagram, Steve? Kind of food porn where there's kind of, I don't know, a Ben and Jerry's with a brownie on top with some chocolate sprinkles on top of it as well, and then I don't know, there's a waffle putting into then the brownie, and I always saw this, and to me at least, it was disgusting to just see that entire creation. It was kind of
overkill.
What did you say?
Overkill.
Yeah, overkill. Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess I think it's died down a lot. I know a lot of people used to do like make their oats and then put a Mars bar in it, or I don't know, things like have their Greek yogurt and then put loads of chocolate on it. I'm like, I don't know, having those together. I understand eating those things, but having them together just never made sense to me. No, but I like having my things generally separate. It's like ketchup. Some people dip their pizza in ketchup. I'm like, what? Again, it's like if it's a good pizza, you don't need the ketchup.
The thing is, this all comes from a guy who finds bland potatoes and quark freaking delicious. So take it with a little bit of grain of salt.
Does it depend on the potato a little bit? I found some potatoes taste really good, and then I've had potatoes, I don't know why, different white potatoes. I'm just like, these ones are like, bleh. this one is nice.
There are 3 different versions, of course. I have no idea what it's called on English, but there's festkochend, mehlig kochend, and then there's a mixture between the 2, which is kind of the one is so. These are 3 different types with 3 different amounts of starchy carbohydrates in them. And the starch is, of course, creating then a harder texture or a more softer texture. And I like it when my potatoes are a little bit harder.
That's what I prefer as well, rather than like fluffy. But I know, I'm not into my potatoes well enough to know. Yeah. I just know we get this vegetable box every week, and they just give us any old potatoes, and I'm like, I like these ones. I don't like these ones.
You still have that subscription running?
We paused it for a little bit because when I was gaining previously and my appetite was so poor, I was like, I can't commit to eating like this much fruit and veg, and some like my appetite's good for this one, but I can't stomach eating whatever this is. And it unpaused and it's going again, and we just got a smaller box, which seems more manageable. And I'm the only one eating it really, because Charlotte is so often not here to eat it. So it's kind of on me.
And I was under the assumption that vegetarians and vegan people only eat kind of green stuff. It's so funny because back then our manager, he was vegetarian, and that was 15 years ago, right? When lots of places where you've toured to, they didn't even know what a vegetarian was, And when you've tried to explain what a vegetarian was and what it is that they are supposed to then deliver for catering, the options that they always served was something like a lasagna without meat or some kind of salad. These were the typical vegetarian meals that people served for him, which is so funny.
I know Charlotte used to get I don't know, when she was first vegan and even when she was vegetarian, I think she used to get like frustrated now and then at the options given at restaurants. But now in London, we are spoilt for choice. Like when me and Charlotte go out to eat, 9 times out of 10, it will be a vegan place because the choices are great, to be honest.
It's the same in Berlin as well. And I've talked about it a couple of times that Berlin, especially certain areas of Berlin, has always been known for more like a vegan place. And I even was meeting a friend of mine in Mitte the other day. It was kind of 2 weeks ago. And then we were at that ramen place for the first time. There were 2 different doors. And we thought like, what door are we supposed to go into? So we took that one door, and it turned out that was the vegan store. And this one next to them was the, I don't want to say normal, but the meaty store, And I found it the carnivore store, exactly. I liked it and I disliked it at the same time because do you have to separate them? But at the same time, it's probably because the location was free after a while, and then they just purchased it to then open another store. I would assume.
I know for there's pros and cons. You think I know separating them, at least then for Charlotte, when we go to like Mildred's where we went this past weekend, everything on the menu is vegan. So she doesn't have to worry about, is this vegan, is this not? But at the same time, if you mix them together, then someone who may have chosen meat might try a vegan dish. Whereas if you don't mix them at all, then they're just going to have meat.
And what if you're going with someone who is a vegan and the other one is a carnivore?
Well, it makes it tricky.
Then you have the dilemma. Who gives in?
But I basically had a ramen dish this weekend. I put it on my story. I don't always share when I go out to eat. I don't know. I feel funny about it sometimes because I end up sharing just when I eat out. And then I'm like, I don't share the boring shit I eat every day. And I'm worried that people get the wrong perception of what's going on. But anyway, it was freaking delicious. It was unreal. It was so good.
Ramen is so good. Honestly, especially in the wintertime. So every single time that I went out over the past couple of weeks, so meeting friends, going out with Katie, we always went to a ramen place because if it's 0 degrees or lower, get ramen. It's freaking amazing. And it tastes amazing as well. Yeah. Don't get it in the summertime though. It's just, we did it once and I instantly regretted it because you're just like, it's already very hot. And if it's then a little bit spicy as well, you are sweating your ass off. Yeah.
And the good thing with ramen, you can it can be quite manageable in terms of calories. I know for me, when I'm dieting, Wagamama is always my go-to because their chicken ramen, it's like less than 500 calories according to their numbers, but it seems pretty reasonable to me. So yeah, it's a good choice. Even when you're massing, obviously you can get one that has like higher fats or whatever, or more carbs or something. Yeah. So
what does a typical day of eating look like for you at the moment, Steve? I don't think that you have shared it in a while.
No, it probably looks very similar to last time that I shared it because I'm just that person.
That's what I realized when I asked the question, but the words came quicker than the thought alone.
3 of my meals are exactly the same pretty much every day. My dinner is one that varies depending if I'm eating with Charlotte or I'm eating on my own and what food there is available. And I like having that little bit of freedom in the evening to just like, I don't know, one day I might have eggs, another day might be steak, another day might be soy meat, another one might be, I don't know, just like protein oats if I just fancy having protein oats again.
Can I quickly ask a question then on that note? Is it the same with you as it is with me that the caloric values of the certain foods are never really varying too much? So basically it's kind of always the same. When it comes to a breakfast and you are varying things or switching things up a little bit, it always has somewhat the same caloric value. So very similar at least.
Yeah, I guess, I think if I'm understanding what you're saying right, yes, at least at the moment. So when I started mini cutting, my appetite was still terrible. So I couldn't have like protein oats with blueberries for breakfast. Yeah. And eventually I transitioned to it and I enjoyed it. So now I'm continuing with the same breakfast. I just have like a small bowl of cereal alongside it to get in some more calories. Does that make, so the fundamentals are still there? I just remove bits and add bits depending on where I am. Of course.
I mean, if you're then needing to make some adjustments to your calories, so from a daily perspective, you need to increase the calories or decrease them. Of course, you have to change things up. But I was more so referring to if you have, like, let's say 4,000 calories and you are eating 4 meals, each and every single meal, for the sake of simplicity, always contains like 1,000 calories, independent of what the meal looks like. So breakfast is always 1,000, independent of whether it's now oats with some kind of other stuff, because it's kind of the same for me, or at least it is what it looks like for me. Breakfast is always the same. Lunchtime is nearly always the same as well. And if it's varying, it kind of has at least the same volume, size, and also then the same caloric density.
Yeah, for me, pretty much like I like to often try and bias more carbohydrates and calories earlier in the day and around training. But often the size of my meals are getting to a point where I'm just like, I'm not extra hungry at those times. My appetite's better later. So I end up spreading it and they're pretty even across the day. The only time that differs is if, say, me and Charlotte have planned to eat out and I know, okay, that's going to be a bit higher in calories. So I'll swipe off 250 calories, just take some carbs off basically my like lunch before that meal. And then I'll have that extra buffer for that meal out that we're going to have, which inevitably is like always going to be a bit higher. So, but yeah, exactly. Like, it just makes it so simple. I always say to my clients, it's like, if you follow like a semi-structured meal plan, it's like having a uniform for work or school. You don't have to think about what you're going to wear. You just put it on and go. Like, there's no second guessing anything. And the most successful clients I find, I imagine it's the same for you, Pascal, are the ones that do have that samey structure, the ones who are trying to, like, I look at their calories and they're changing almost every single day by quite significant amounts, like 200 to 300 a day. And I'm like, and their macros are really quite variable, but still within ranges and can still be productive. But I'm like, that level of change day to day, like, I'm like, that must be challenging. It's an extra thing to have to think about and manage versus having things pretty samey day to day.
No, absolutely. And I also think that level of control allows for even more flexibility. It's like you just pointed out so yourself, and it's the same how I handle things. If then I know I will be going out with Katie the other day, then I'm eating kind of a little bit less in the lunchtime. I don't even need to track it because you have such a control and such a good understanding of the meal itself. So instead of having then, I don't know, for example, right now I like to eat kind of 2 pieces of toast. This is 70 grams at the moment because they are a little bit bigger. And if I want to save a little bit of calories, I could easily leave those away and eat it somewhere else. Right? Easy. it doesn't have to be overly complex or complicated, and that's why I have sometimes a hard time understanding it. But I think because we've just moved away from it since such a long time, we haven't really had those issues that we may have dealt with in the past, that most people are dealing with right now. And that's why there sometimes is a little bit of a disconnect, which is, of course, something that you always have to remind yourself about, that you are so further ahead when it comes to that maybe nutritional understanding or the understanding around training methodologies as well.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. I sometimes am surprised when I see people not knowing kind of that, what I now deem as like a fundamental basic knowledge. And that's why I think it's so important, and the reason I'm really proud of our coaching, because we've got the time, first of all, and we will take the time to dive into things and put ourselves in our client's shoes. So whether that be watching a form video because something just seems off within, their programming and what they're doing, and maybe they're feeding back to you, it just doesn't feel great. So we can dig into that further. Or their nutrition, we can actually ask, okay, so what does your diet look like on a daily basis? Let me look into your MyFitnessPal if I need to. Because it just gives you that extra understanding, and you're like, I don't know, you're not losing weight because you're tracking your chicken sandwich that you're making at home as a generic chicken sandwich from a supermarket. It's like, no, like, you don't have it. You have so much more control than you realize. I think, that's where that's where those sort of clients, I think, can be spat out very quickly, where if they don't, like, if they're not a quite well experienced client, the wrong coach can quickly not suit them at all, because it's like they're so far away from and not got the time to be able to help them.
What I also did, Steve, is to limit the times that we are ordering things or eating out. So eating out is, of course, also due to kids, not very often possible. It's simply not fun eating out with kids. It isn't, because they can't really sit still. Maybe they're sitting still for like 10 minutes. And then you have to control the kids. And that's simply not fun. Or now having a dog at home. So it's not really happening often. But I always like to limit myself of like 1 to 2 times of either an ordered meal or eating out at its highest. Because that allows for still plenty of flexibility, in my opinion. And also it saves you probably also a lot of money.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it gives you a lot of control while having and combining everything that you probably need. No one needs, in my opinion at least, to eat out each and every single day for dinner or so.
Yeah,
and that's a big emphasis on need.
Yeah, you absolutely don't need to. It just the first person that comes to mind, I don't know if you've seen it, Alex Hormozy. We've spoken about him before. He's big on like every meal he eats out, and he's like, he makes that money back because he saves on like washing up, he saves on like buying the stuff, he saves on like making it. He's like, you should eat out every meal. That's a business decision. There's not like a physique decision, because again, particularly if you're on lower calories like yourself, eating out, as we've already said, is always higher calories. It's harder to manage, it's harder to control. You can guesstimate, you can do your best, but there's always that room for error. And so it's easier to fall off track when you aren't managing things as tightly. And meals out, takeaways, they're never as managed as tightly as a food made at home. So especially I think if you're on lower calories, eating out is even less of something you can play around with. But me and Charlotte said, I don't know how many weeks ago we said it, where we're like, right, 1 takeaway a week, 1 meal out. That's kind of very similar to you, but it's kind of moved into 1 takeaway a week, or rather 1 to 2 takeaways and 1 to 2 meals out. So like the max I think we let ourselves is 3. I wouldn't want to go up to 4, and it's mostly I can manage it nutritionally, because again my calories are at a place where it's like less of a, like it becomes a struggle sometimes to eat out like all the time. Like I think if you're having, depends what you're eating as well though, and what the other person wants to have. But I also just don't enjoy eating out that much. I like for me, just having my dinner and it being really boring and basic and very functional, that brings me joy, because I'm just like, I know what to have, which is why I'm not too upset when Charlotte's back late and we don't eat together, because I'm just like, I get to eat my own stuff. But finances is like you mentioned, like it gets expensive when you're eating out all the time.
I can see that maybe in certain cities, it may still be cheaper to actually go and eat out rather than actually picking it up from the supermarket. Especially, I don't know, maybe something like New York City, and I could be completely wrong. It's just the city that pops to my mind because you only have those smaller convenience stores. It's not those bigger supermarkets in the midst of the city. And if you're then living there, I could imagine that it's a little bit more expensive to buy just some groceries and all that kind of stuff. Could be completely wrong though. And maybe in a city like this, it's just a little bit more cheap to go out and then eat out and all that kind of stuff. But for me personally, the next supermarket is literally like 1 minute away from us. It's kind of nearly my neighbor. I can't see the supermarket when I'm.
Can you?
Yeah, when I look outside of the window, which is freaking amazing, by the way. It's a huge luxury, and something like this, right? Maybe the Alex Hormozy recommendation doesn't really apply to me then, because it doesn't really take up a lot of my time. Yeah. I can really just step out the door, and if I need something, I just go over when I've forgotten something. For example, I go over, pay, and I'm back in 5 minutes. That wasn't a big deal. It takes me longer to get to a restaurant for me, personally. Right, so yeah, I mean, there are probably always nuances then to that situation.
Nuance, just to add one nuance.
Yeah.
There's a difference between going to like Subway, because that is very managed in terms of like, there's not a lot of guesstimating going on. Like you almost, I don't know, the last time I went to Subway was a while ago, but I can remember them being like with cucumber and tomato slices. It's like they're counting out the number you get.
I think they do actually.
Yeah.
Because it's all calculated.
Exactly. So because they have to know if they've sold this many of this, they need this much to replace it. So it's very standardized versus me going to like a vegan restaurant, guesstimating that. I know I'm off by, like, I'm not ignorant to that. I am not. Like I'm good at guesstimating things, but this is like a bowl of stuff that I don't regularly eat. I'm going to guesstimate some calories, but I could easily be off by 20%. And so I don't want to be off by 20% 4 times a week. I'm happy to do it once in an off season, but when I'm like dieting in a mini cart, if I'm in prep, that's not happening. I don't like, that's not good for me. Like I'm not willing to sacrifice being off by that amount. So yeah, that's the only other variable.
I'm the same as you as well when it comes to also preparing my own food. I like it because I enjoy what I'm eating. It's not that it's a chore for me, those things that I'm eating at home. And it gives me a lot of satisfaction, to be honest. And I bring it back to the potatoes with quark. It sounds freaking boring to the vast majority of people, but I know how to boil my potatoes the way that I like them.
And the right potato.
Yeah. And if you go to, I don't know, a restaurant, you can't imagine how often I had it that boiled potatoes, they drip it in oil just to boil it, and also boil it in the oven, for example, right? And then also the quark is a full fatty quark that they've just like dripped over the entire potato.
This is a dish you can get out as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like a diet hack type dish for you.
It's called Ofenkartoffel, so oven potato, and it's something that I don't enjoy because the quark, I don't like it when the quark is high fat. I sometimes enjoy it when it's kind of 20% fat, and then you blend it into the oats. This tastes very great, but most of the time, because it's much cheaper with a 40% of fatty option, and I don't like it.
Yeah,
right? And this is one of the most simplistic meals that we are talking about. And often when we're going out, and this is also me being absolutely spoiled due to then the cuisine that you have available in a big city like Berlin or also London, the quality of restaurants is so high that slightly outside here, when people are recommending a restaurant and you're going there, you just think like, man, something like this wouldn't even survive in a city like Berlin. It's crazy and it sounds so wrong, but that's just the way it is. That's something that I've noticed so often when we actually did a holiday in some small city or village. You went out to that very good reviewed place. People were recommending that place and you were just utterly disappointed because it was the lowest. My parents, they owned a restaurant, right? So it also then applies, of course, to what it is that they served in the past. So I don't want to step into a territory just giving people shit or so, but this is just my experience. And that's why when I'm then coming out of a restaurant trip and I'm massively disappointed and I think it was a waste of money, I rather spend that money and time at home preparing my own food and knowing how many calories I kind of stuff down my throat.
Yeah, you get the double win. You get the like functionality win of knowing you're more on point, and you get the win of actually enjoying the food made. And I'm nodding my head as you're talking there, because literally that happened in Tenerife just now when me and Charlotte went.
Oh, right.
None of the restaurants we ate at there, and we ate out every night or every day once. None of them were as nice as what you can get in London. But even in like cities, I'm sure in same in Berlin, but in London, you can find a place, like there's a place on Tooting High Street, a pizza place. We went there and we were like, how does this survive? It was literally like a frozen pizza from fucking Sainsbury's. Like, it was not good at all. And I'm the same as you. I'm like, I've paid for this. I've spent money on this. I've got to eat it. But I'm also a bit like fed up that I've eaten that. So
absolutely, 100%.
We are fussy eaters, I guess, to some extent.
And it sounds, maybe people don't really understand where it is that we're coming from, but just imagine this. And I, as people know, I'm a coffee snob, and I wholeheartedly admit that I am. That's totally all right. But it's a blessing and curse at the same time, because I now know what I can get out of my coffee at home with my equipment. Whenever I'm then drinking out at a different coffee place, and it's not a qualified barista who really knows what he's doing, it just tastes like piss. And in the past, you didn't notice any kind of difference because you had no reference to compare it to. Now you do. And it's kind of, once again, it's kind of like a blessing and curse, because you now know how lovely it can taste. But at the same time, because of that, you can't really enjoy a lot of things and bittersweet things in life anymore. And it's the same when it comes to restaurants, because you are now used, due to your environment, to such a high standard that when going to eat out at different places, different cities, they are not as of a high standard. Most of the time it tastes like shit. Sorry. I know exactly what you mean. I don't know coffee anywhere near as well as you, but if I've been to places that don't even make us coffee as good as my flipping Nespresso, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this, and then
at least
they're
I get
charging like, I don't know,
caffeine.
four pounds or something like this.
Exactly. I guess the good part of that is the kind of everything in life, yin and yang. The bad makes you appreciate the good and what you have at home, which is very nice, because it reminds me of, I used to, back in the day, obviously I was like clean and dirty food. So I wouldn't eat things that were like, I don't know, maybe some fried foods or like some pastries and like cookies, stuff like this. So I hadn't had them for the longest time, and almost in my head, and I'd have like always skim milk, not like semi-skim milk. And then when I tried some of these things thinking, oh, I won't like it, I was like, fuck, that tastes like semi-skim milk is a bit nicer than skim milk. And like a cookie can taste really good. And now I'm like, oh man, like, but I can only have maybe half a cookie sometimes. Like, I can't eat the whole thing. And it allows me to enjoy those things more rather than just blasting into them.
So one short break, and then I have one more thing to add.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
So I was just saying the other day to Katie that she's sometimes on, on Wednesdays, she's creating, it's kind of Quark Tag, we are saying. It's Quark Day. Or we have another term for it, Schleim time. Schleim, it's kind of, what's it, porridge, kind of. You know? Schleim time, you get the pun, Anyway, what I want to say is she does it so well. It tastes so good. But she's also the one who doesn't give a shit about calories. So she just makes it delicious, and it tastes freaking delicious. And I'm sometimes just like, man, ignorance, as you said, Steve, can be such a bliss at times, because especially when it comes to nutrition, some things you don't really know how many calories it contains because it is that high. And it tastes so amazing. And I would love to eat the way that she's doing the quark each and every single day, because it tastes so freaking good. But I also know that it is kind of 1,000 calories or more just for that one bowl, which kind of lasts from a satiety level maybe 3 hours or so. It's simply not worth it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's not worth it, and that's where ignorance is bliss in the short term, I think, for people, and maybe for people who don't have like physique aspirations. But for us, like it wouldn't be bliss anymore, because it's good that we know so we can manage it. And because sometimes I'm like, for foods especially that I don't eat regularly, and sometimes I then find out how many calories are in there, like, I don't know, a slice of cheesecake. I always thought it was high, and then I see like the calories in there, I'm like, holy shit, 600-700 calories for a slice of cheesecake. Right, okay, I'll have half of one maybe, or a quarter of one, and spread that over days. And then like I'm glad. In some ways, I wish I didn't know, because then I just eat it and maybe enjoy it. But then I'd be like, oh, why is the scale up by so much? What have I done wrong? I'd start questioning things. Whereas knowing allows me to like make a choice of, is it worth going over my calories by that much? No, I don't need that much. I can eat a bit and enjoy that and then move on. So I'm sure lots of the listeners
very
have
well
been
said, and I totally agree with you on this one. Of course, we are joking about kind of ignorance is bliss, but I think it's never bliss. In the end, being knowledgeable and well educated about something allows you to make a conscious decision. And then you can still decide to have that, I don't know, whatever it is. Doesn't matter what it is. Also, when it comes to drugs, for example, because you brought up kind of drug use in the last podcast episode, something like this as well. If you are very well educated, you are fully aware of the potential consequences, what this means in the short and also medium to long term, and you still decide to go down that route, hey, go ahead, do this, right? And it's the same with everything else in life. I think that having a fundamental knowledge and also educating yourself about something that may have bigger impacts on your life is super important. And if nutrition doesn't have a big impact, what else does? And that's why I'm so shocked still why, from a societal perspective, kids are not being educated about certain things around nutrition, for example. There's no awareness whatsoever, not even the fundamental principles of what kind of good foods or bad foods, if you really want to label them, are. Because we know that if you don't have any kind of awareness, it's all in the same drawer. And I don't think that this is a good thing. The same goes for monetary things. People don't know what really money is, what it is, where it comes from, how it's produced, how it's managed, etc., etc. And like food and money, it dictates your life.
Yeah,
it does. And having no education or understanding of those things is shocking to me.
Yeah, I agree. You learn how to cook and prepare food at school. Some schools, I don't know if everywhere, like food tech, but there was no like education behind like what foods you should maybe be prioritizing, how to like build a meal that is like health producing or whatever, however you want to term it. Because I think for kids, I guess you have to be careful because eating disorders, I guess, could become a thing, especially I guess now with like Instagram and like skinny, I don't know, the whole skinny sensation and sensationalized for females, but even guys now like trying to get big and jacked. I guess like, again, education behind like, I don't know, even drug use. I don't know, like there's so many fundamental things in life that, again, like I literally spoke to someone the other day where they're like their coach, they're in the gym, they're training there. It was a powerlifting gym and everyone just took drugs. And he was just like, oh, so that's the way, like to be a powerlifter, you just have to go on drugs. It's like, man, like I don't know. It's just scary that when you are that young and impressionable, you just trust whoever's next there.
But now imagine if you have that or if someone teaches you because it's a fundamental part of your, I don't know, part of growing up. So, I don't know, a module in school or so. I would never assume that this is ever going to take place, but just let's assume that this is in a different dimension or so, right? That they are teaching nutrition in school. If you have that knowledge and it's very much evidence-based, then you can probably dissect it way better of what good information is and what bad information is. And I don't think that people are then more so prone to get their information from some kind of TikToker and then get into the body dysmorphia kind of camp. I think the risk is then much more decreased because of that knowledge. Because when is it that we are making some irrational decisions? It's most of the time when we are acting highly emotional and when we don't have the fundamental knowledge around a subject or topic in general. And then we are starting to look for answers. And often the ones that we are first finding are the ones from entertainers who are best promoting themselves. And it's not always then that these are the most reliable resources.
Yeah, I think the only place where they've done, like in school, you have one of these fundamental education that like impacts everyone's life is like sex education. That was like the only thing where it's like, that's a fundamental part of life. We're going to educate you on that. But like, arguably like finances and like nutrition, like they're just as fundamental things like to take care of, like even like sleep, well-being, like these sort of things. And then, and even like alcohol, like that was never something I was educated about. I don't know, as a kid, you're just like, oh yeah, this gets me fucked up. And I don't know, you just...
I think that you bring up a funny comparison because how often do you have sex in life?
Right? Not as often as you eat.
Yeah, how often are you eating and how often do you spend money and have to take care of your finances? Each and every single day when you're an adult, you know? So yeah, funny comparison then to sex education and then something like this.
I think it's often left to parents, isn't it? These things like, and then, and that's why you get such varied people growing up, and it depends how they're kind of have been brought up when they're younger, and then some who aren't educated maybe have to self-teach and go through things, and I don't think that should necessarily be just left to the parents because it's some parents will be better than others, I guess.
Yeah. So speaking of what it is that we've touched on, and that is the steroid use. Someone really very well commented on the last episode that there are plenty of people taking steroids where you don't really see that they are taking steroids. And I totally agree. And I wanted to touch base on what it is that we started the discussion because I still find it interesting to talk about it. And maybe we want to touch on this one first and then take it from there.
Sure. Yeah.
Cool. So, Steve, I think in the UK especially, there has been a number thrown around maybe 1 or 2 years ago that 1 million male, well, maybe it was like 1 million gym goers have been admitted to steroid use. And if you were to just draw the conclusion there, have you ever seen kind of a representation of 1 million people being freaking jacked and humongous? Not really, right? But at the same time, we can't deny the fact that anabolic steroids do make a tremendous difference, especially when you know how to train well, how to push yourself, and how to take care of your nutrition. But at the same time, yes, there's definitely a huge individual response when it comes to steroid use, that's for sure. But at the same time, I would very much assume that those people who are jumping on steroids, they then, if they are not very much prone to getting humongous, for example, although they don't have their eggs in their basket, then I would very much assume that those look like good natural bodybuilders, but never really reach the top of what may be possible for someone who's running maybe the doses that they are on.
Yeah, I think, I don't even know, how do they come to that 1 million? But I would have thought like that could even underreport, because how many people just don't even disclose like that information, or like, I don't remember me being like ever asked and put into a study or whatever. So I'm interested how they even
Don't you know how they do it?
natty or not, they go into gyms.
Exactly. They are just taking a look at the pictures, conclude from FFMI, and then if you're then above kind of 25, you are not natty anymore.
I'm trying to think of a comparison that would be like a good comparison. I don't know. I can't think of a good like analogous example, but like I think when we consider it, it's more like people who are in the sort of position we're in, a lot of the listeners are in. If a lot of the listeners started to be educated and take like smart drug protocols and they already have a smart training base, they're going to blow up. 9 times out of 10, they're going to blow up. It's unlikely you're going to like I don't know how much it even is, like double, triple your testosterone levels, and good things aren't going to happen. Like it's very unlikely. So I think most of the people who are taking stuff and don't see, maybe like they're not huge and jacked. One, maybe they did a 3-month cycle and they're just like, oh, it wasn't worth it for me or whatever. Or it was like shit that wasn't really potent, or like, I don't know where they got it from. And again, maybe their nutrition, sleep, all the stuff outside. We're not saying like take like steroids and you're going to be jacked, full stop. That's like saying a genetic elite is jacked, full stop. No, he has to go into the gym, he has to eat, he has to train, the same as someone taking drugs. But we are saying if me and Pascal went on gear, we would blow up. Like to a certain extent, we would blow up. I wouldn't, like it's very unlikely we're all the way at the end of the like bell curve. And actually, I can even say I was prescribed testosterone replacement therapy, for those who don't know, when I had my head injury, to bring up my testosterone levels. I literally went from like not being able to grow a beard, zero libido, not having body hair, to those things coming back. Like I remember having like an unbearable libido. I remember having like facial hair coming back, hair on my chest and like on my torso and things, more than I have now actually. I don't know if that's a consequence of having lower testosterone now than I had then, or it's a case of like bodybuilding shows and shaving it off and it not growing back quite as much. I don't know. But yeah, and that was fucking, I don't even know what the milligrams was, but it's fuck all basically, because it was just a gel I could rub on my nipples to get rid of the gynecomastia that I developed. So, and that was only a short period of time. I have no idea what impact it had like on my physique and like muscularity, because I wasn't taking it for that reason. I didn't even think about it, but certainly that will have improved, and my mood and well-being. So like you're talking to someone who firsthand has done like the smallest drug protocol possible and definitely saw improvements in a vast area of like areas. So I can only imagine what someone like who's injecting this, and I've seen like multiple examples on like social media where people have gone from natty to enhanced, maybe after 5-10 years of training natural, and they like double their gains in like 6 months, I swear, like, you know, hitting PRs on a almost every session to session basis, and whereas it's taking us months to hit PRs potentially.
I think you bring up a very, very good point, because the statement isn't false of the comment over on YouTube. That's definitely true that there are certain people who are not responding that well. But is it because of the drugs, or is it because of other reasons? Because they are probably still responding, but not to the extent that you're seeing over on social media with the vast majority of people. Because the people that you are talking about, Steve, are the ones who have already a good understanding of training, maybe to failure or something like this, or training intensity, the right training intensity. They have a couple of years under their belt. They know how to push themselves. They know how to really feel the muscles and all that kind of stuff. They know how to eat, etc., etc. Those are the ones. And I've never seen it so far, never ever, that someone who then decided to jump on gear didn't really respond well. I've never seen it. Right? And that's why there is not a non-responder or someone who's responding poorly to drugs. There's someone, of course, who responds extremely well, of course, right? This has also to do with them with the receptors and stuff. But at the same time, the drugs, they still do the work. And what it is that you then see in a shorter period of time is still by far outperforming what it is that you can achieve naturally, for the vast majority of people, at least. So once again, the statement isn't false, but at the same time, there are plenty of people out there who simply don't know how to train, and they just have been training for 6 months. They have a friend and they are just recommending like, hey, take these pills. Of course, they are not going to see the results that they would like to, but still, underneath it all, they are still making some gains. 100%.
More than they would without it.
Yeah.
Like completely. I don't know who it was. Do you remember Ziz?
Yeah.
I think he had a brother called like Chest Bra was like his nickname or something.
I have no idea, man.
I think I saw him on like a podcast, like Reel, talking through how he would like take drugs previously. And he was like, he would be taking the drugs like they were like alcohol, just like a lifestyle drug, like just to look good. And he didn't understand what they were doing to his body. People like this, there's probably a large chunk of people who are taking them who aren't really invested in like their training, their nutrition, their sleep, nailing everything. So they're people who probably in their situation, if they didn't take anything, they'd see little to no progress. Yeah. And now they're seeing like maybe similar progress to someone like us who's not doing any of that other harmful stuff to their lifestyle, ticking every single box and now seeing some results. So yeah, I guess it's the answer to the person saying it. Like, I completely agree, but I guess we're coming from the perspective of assuming they're doing a lot of the fundamentals correctly. But in every situation, it's giving you a boost in the results you otherwise would be getting for sure. Yeah. And that boost is going to differ person to person.
Yeah. And if you want to then take that comparison, take a look at someone like Josh Bridgman, for example, who already had a very good physique as a natural competitor, who had a good understanding of training and all that kind of stuff, and who then was responsible about his drug use and also was very committed of becoming an IFBB pro. Just take a look at his physique. It's insane, his transformation. And of course, you can say and make the argument of like, yeah, but he's elite, isn't he? Sure. But believe me, with the right amount of gear, everyone could actually then get that huge. Maybe not from a aesthetic perspective look that good. Maybe you would die before you are actually reaching that level. But theoretically speaking, with the right amount of gear, probably everyone is capable of getting there. But I don't think that the system is then maybe capable of letting you get there.
Yeah, I think, I can't remember who said it. It was like someone like, and Josh Bridgman's a good example. Someone who comes to mind, I don't know if you follow him, Jack Richardson, another person who educated, knows his stuff, very good natural competitor.
Blown up.
Huge man. Like he is ginormous. And I think he's competed once or twice now as a enhanced competitor. I don't believe has gone pro yet, but certainly got capabilities. And again, he was a very good natural competitor. Yeah. So it's nice that he's also going to be competitive.
And I can count up a lot of examples because we've been in this industry since a long time. And I've seen a lot of people making the step towards steroid use, which is something that I'm totally fine with if they are making an educated decision. And if they want to go down that route, totally fine. And I've seen it time and time and time again. Those people who have a couple of years under the belt when it comes to normal training, then jumping on gear, maybe even having a good person by their side, takes care of their drug protocols, such as Joe Jeffrey, for example. Often have I seen that people are blowing the fuck up in just a matter of like 1 or 2 years. You're then seeing the results of someone who has been training for 10 years in just a matter of 1 year. And that is with a responsible amount of drugs. And some people are taking an irresponsible amount of drugs and they are blowing even more up. But of course, this comes at a cost as well.
Yes. I think I have 3 points. One is maybe I should bring Joe Jeffrey on to talk about this further because he is probably a really good amount of like experience with this and responders. I can't remember what my second point was now, but my third point was that Mike Israetel often would say, like, because he comes from the perspective, and we're not arguing what he's saying. Some people argue is that like drugs do everything. That's the same argument saying genetics do everything. It's like, no. Like Big Ramy wouldn't me and Pascal would never be Big Ramy without like with any amount of drugs. We're just never going to be there. Like everyone listening is never going to be Big Ramy. Like he is a genetic like freak completely, and he was huge probably like before he started going on gear. Isn't like he was 150 pounds, it made him 300 pounds. But everyone's getting that boost, that they're getting a level up from where they are for their natural, like their kind of the genetic ceiling of the naturally is now boosted, like wherever, and it depends on genetics and how much they're taking and all that good stuff. So I guess that's our perspective on this, and why we think it's like for someone who has transitioned to that or has clients who have done that, like don't undersell the impact that it can have, and just like be open and honest about it, I think is where
that's why I also have a very big issue with it. And this is one of those, I like to see myself as liberal in many, many ways of do whatever you want if you're not harming anyone else around you. If you want to harm yourself, hey, be my guest and do that. I don't really care unless I like you. Then I do care. But on that note, I'm a little bit more conservative, because when someone is putting themselves out there, something like, I don't know, before and after pictures, and they underwent an insane transformation in a matter of like 1 or 2 or even 5 years or so. But the first picture is when they were natural, and the second picture is now when they are running 2 grams of gear, like on a weekly basis. Then I find, and you don't really disclose that, then I find it very, 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 not just deceiving, but I despise it. I very much despise it. Because that is kind of lying in a way that I simply can't stand behind or can't applaud in any shape or way. Because it's kind of like scamming people. You're selling a hope, you're selling a dream. And then if you have like a very deep message underneath your pictures, like, this is hard work, this is what 365 days of commitment look like. Fuck, come on, there's the door. Get out of here, man. Like, honestly, this is 365 days of drug use. And of course, maybe some commitment and maybe some work ethic as well. But you just forgot about the disclaimer here. And I very much dislike this.
Yeah. I guess if I was to play devil's advocate, and I think I'm going to do a poor job of this because I have the same perspective as you on this, I guess, no, I can't even do it because I'm not going to be able to do it justice. I was like, it might get people focusing on the wrong things. It's like, this transformation, we're dedicated to my sleep, to my training every day, to my nutrition. This is like what led to these results. And so it might get people focusing on what they can do and not taking drugs to get them. But I can't even argue that, because I was going to say the comparison of like, you should disclose you're taking creatine or something. It's like, well, it's not, you can't, because it's, no. And the thing is, someone might make the argument of, oh, do you have to always disclose if your genetics are good or bad on it? It's like, yeah, but everyone has a genetic baseline. Yeah. People on drugs, not on drugs. You don't, like, everyone's going to respond differently. And that's just like a natural thing. This is something that is, you're taking, we know it's going to boost results. Like, especially like you said, if they're going from like, it's fun, like as an enhanced competitor, if you're going from like an enhanced picture before and after, like you could still make some arguments that maybe they should disclose if they increase their dosage or whatever, because that could drive quite a lot of results. But particularly going from natural to enhanced, I had someone message me the other day where they were like, oh, it's really interesting to see your like before and after of like when you'd been lifting a little bit of time after like a decade, because quite often I see those before and afters from enhanced people, and they achieve that in like a few years. And I was just like, oh shit, you're right. And I thought he was going to say it was impressive to see it from like oh, you really grew a lot, but it was like impressive that it took that long or something. Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. And I'm not saying that I want every person to always, underneath every picture, to say, hey, and by the way, I'm enhanced, just so that I'm disclosing that. That's not what I'm saying, and I'm not expecting that. I also think that sometimes people just need to turn on the head and think about what it is that they are seeing. So perfect example is the Liver King, that it just shows how clueless, though, some people still are. And if you're then promoting your service, for example, or promoting something that you're making money on, and you're not disclosing that, that is, in my opinion and understanding, somewhat like a scammy approach. And that is something that I take very, very big issues with.
Yeah, the Liver King's a great example. He was particularly bad because he would say he was natural. Like he would like say that people who were taking drugs were like soy ball. I don't even know what his saying was, but he would like talk out against them.
Yeah.
He'd be like, no, you can be as jacked and look like me if you just do all these like whatever his principles, ancestral living principles were. It's like, okay, well, fundamentally, a lot of what he disclosed in terms of like taking care of your sleep and like getting exercise, they were good things, but it was all under the guise of like, you can look like me because look at me and I don't take drugs. So do this stuff.
And especially when you're a coach, in my opinion, it doesn't really change the fact that you had undergone a fantastic transformation.
Yeah.
So there's no downplaying your achievements or accomplishment, in my opinion. So why not disclose it? It just shows trust, in my opinion. If you don't do it, then I know what type of person you are most of the time.
Yeah.
That is just me, of course. I'm just talking about my perception on things. And that doesn't mean that everyone has to agree with me. Some people may even listen to that and think like, Pascal, what are you even talking about? Everyone can do whatever they want to do, because that's also what it is that we're seeing on billboards. It's also kind of marketing tips and tricks with lighting, with retouching, with whatever. Right? It's kind of to some extent the same. And underneath every picture, it doesn't really say this picture has been edited or so. Totally get that. But I think that especially when you're then offering personalized services where you are building trust, or you need to build that trust and transparency, I just find it wrong.
Yeah.
I just find it wrong.
It reminds me of Goob, for example, where he's Goob You Too.
Yeah,
He's like on Instagram picking people where he can see that they've enhanced their image or whatever. And even client before and afters, like they're using that to adjust it, and they're selling a service or selling a product via their physique, but they're enhancing it via a Photoshop. And I'm not saying Photoshop and like steroids are the same thing, but it's just about being honest. And it comes back to that comment that we made about like ignorance is not bliss. For a consumer, like being informed about these things is actually really helpful, because I don't know, there's probably a lot of guys who have looked at some physiques like, who's the like classic non-natty guy? Oh, he's like got a really strong tan, like he looks like kind of Hercules. Michael Hearn, Trenner Hearn or whatever his name. But people looking at him and how he's so adamant he is natural. And it's like, man, how many, like, we should all give up if he's natural. Like, he's like, none of us are ever going to look like that. So what are we doing wrong? It could really drive people the wrong way.
We can either all decide that we want to continue living in a illusion or delusional world rather, or just come to terms with a little bit more transparency when it comes to this. And I'm all for transparency. It's also one of the big issues that I have when it comes to certain political discussions or decisions and stuff like this, right? And also one of the big issues that I myself have with the current financial system, that there's so little transparency. And I think if you really then also compare it to other fields, you would always like people to be honest with you, don't you? So why don't we hold this to the same standard?
Yeah, I agree. I don't have much to add. I think that's a good point to leave it on.
Absolutely. Keep your eyes peeled and open, guys. You never know who is a steroid user. That's the message of this podcast.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh dear.
Yes, steering the pot when it comes to natty or not.
Now that can be because last time you screwed up with the title of the podcast, you should have said, "When did we lose our virginity?"
Yes, I know. I didn't really want to take it that far. I'm not that low yet.
It wasn't even clickbait. We literally discussed it.
That's true.
So now it's stirring the natty or not pot.
Yeah, I was even considering doing that, but I think this will first happen when I'm out on the street really needing the money. That I use that type of clickbaity titles and names and stuff like this.
The audience are demanding it. I saw it. The comment
that I'm out on the street and then on my knees.
Guys, with that, I guess we can call it. Comment below if you want. Comment below an aubergine if you want Pascal to be out on his knees. I'd be surprised if we get any aubergines. I don't even know if you can comment emojis over on YouTube.
Yeah, I think you can, but only when you're on your phone, I think.
Man, well, you better be taking that extra effort I know a lot of people want to see Pascal on his knees.
I know.
So guys, thank you for listening. If you have any thoughts on this, please comment below. Like a lot of these subjects, this is just our opinion of our experience in the industry that we work within. So it'd be cool to hear your experience and thoughts, even if they disagree or agree with us. And as always, share this with anyone might be interested. And I guess we'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers, guys. Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.